Reading with your kids.
Hola, ni hao, konnichiwa, assalamu alaikum, mahaba, moni muli wanji, namaste, jambo, bienvenidos. Hi, my name is Jedley, and this is the Reading with Your Kids podcast, a special Protecting the Planet with Your Kids episode of the show. We are coming to you from the beautiful neighborhood of Reedville in the southwest corner of Boston, Massachusetts, part of this amazing and beautiful planet that we all want to protect. Right now, let me introduce to you my co-host for this series of episodes, Alexia Brown. Alexia, how are you?
I am doing so good. We are here today with Alan Hesse, author of the series Adventure of Captain Polo. Welcome to Reading with Your Kids.
Thank you so much, Alexia and Jed. It's a pleasure to be here.
How are you today?
I'm very well, thank you. Very well. Looking forward to this little chat we're going to have.
Me too. So you're the author of the series The Adventure of Captain Polo, which just came out with its fourth installment, Pole to Pole. So could you just tell us a little bit about the book and about your series?
Sure. It's a series that is about climate change. It is about protecting the Earth. So it's classified as sort of fact-based fiction. And they are graphic novels for kids, but many adults also enjoy them. And it's a constant evolution of me mixing the storytelling elements of action and adventure and humor with facts that are very carefully researched. And it's a constant balance that I need to strike. But the books are as you said, there are 4 books in the series now. And the main character is Captain Polo, who is a polar bear, obviously a cartoon polar bear, who is anthropomorphic in that he walks upright and can talk any language he needs to, human language, and uses cash and can sail a boat and is pretty savvy. And he just starts off in book 1 as just a regular old polar bear, who's hunting, and because of the Arctic ice melt, which is a real problem caused by global warming, polar bears are finding it very hard to hunt because their habitat is not stable anymore. And so this is reflected in the book. Captain Polo is not a captain at all. He's just a polar bear at that moment. And he gets thrown off his melting piece of ice into the Atlantic Ocean. And that's how the story begins in book 1. And I won't give it away, but he ends up gaining possession of a captain's hat and a sailing boat, and there's a whole story to that, and implies all kinds of very intelligent moves by the polar bear. And he travels the world. But he's still just a regular old polar bear who just wants to get home and hunt more seals. But the ocean's currents, he meets people that run away, and he ends up doing a world tour, and this is the books 1 to 3. And during that world tour, he meets all kinds of characters, human and non-human, and they all tell him about their particular issues with climate change and environmental problems where they live. But the book is mainly about solutions. It's not about problems. I want to make that clear. So I don't believe in sugarcoating the problems, though. I think kids need to know the truth. But they also need to know that they can be part of the solution, and that there are many solutions already being implemented right now. And so the book is about that as well. And book 4, the one that I released just in February, is a different adventure of Captain Polo. But again, it's like a travelogue. He travels from one pole to the other, and it's full of adventure. And I developed new characters in there as well, including a villain, and a sidekick, and all kinds of interesting characters.
Wow. I'm blown away. Where did the inspiration for Captain Polo come from?
Yeah, polar bears are pretty much well known all over the world, even if you've never seen one, which is I've never actually seen a polar bear except in the zoo, right? Okay. But I'd love to see one in the wild. But anyway, it's a symbol of what's happening to the planet in terms of polar ice melt. Polar bears are apex predators. They are well known for being the largest of their kind. And you know, who doesn't have a cuddly polar bear on their shelf somewhere? Let me present to you Captain Polo in person right here.
Oh my goodness, you have your very own polar bear with you.
I do. And so polar bears are well-known animals. They often used as symbols. So I thought, you know, it would be a pretty good inspiration would be to use a polar bear for this story.
Yeah, I feel like to write a whole series about climate change, you must really be passionate kind of about that topic. Do you have a background in climate change, or did like an experience happen to you that really got you passionate about the movement?
A good question, Alexia. I am a conservation biologist professionally, so that kind of explains why I'm doing this in the first place. I've been about conservation since I was a kid, and I've been working in conservation as a scientist for the past 30 years in Latin America, not in the Arctic. But climate change came about because a couple of years ago, when I was still in my full-time conservation job, I was working with farmers in the Andes. And farmers all over the world are the first people who are affected by weather patterns not being as they should be, because they depend on water. And the water can come to the farmers in the Andes in two ways. Either it doesn't come at all, which is a drought, which is a big, big problem, or it can come too much of it all at the same time, which is flooding, causing landslides. And in the mountainous regions, this is very serious for infrastructure and in fact threatens humans' life. And so, we were getting to the point where we had to talk to these farmers we were working with to improve their productive practices, to protect forests, in climate change terms, because projects at that time were already starting to be presented to donors in terms that address climate change. Because climate change was emerging as this priority issue affecting the planet. And so if you wanted to do anything to do with forests or anything to do with the natural world, if you didn't talk about climate change to the donors, to your project colleagues, and to the stakeholders of the projects, you were kind of missing the point. And then I realized I knew nothing about climate change. And nobody on my team knew anything about climate change. So I took a course, learned the basics, but I thought I need to share this knowledge in a way that everyone can access, not just scientists. I need to make it in a fun way. I need to make kids get into it. And so I got the idea of doing my next comic book about it, graphic novel. And that's how Captain Polo came about. And so the inspiration came from wanting to share the information to as many people as possible in an entertaining form as well.
Did you get any blowback from your colleagues by choosing to go this, what some people might think is a less than serious route of delivering education? I'm all with you, by the way.
Yeah.
I think that the people who need to hear this information the most are kids, and this is a great way to get that information to kids. But did any of the professionals that you were working with say, "Oh, Alan, you need to write an academic paper. We got to get it peer reviewed. What are you doing writing a comic book?"
It's funny you should say that, because actually I got quite the opposite. People were really into it. And it's funny because when I walk into a scientific conference or something, just another one of them, they're like, "Oh yeah, whatever, you're just another one of us guys." But then if they say, "So what do you do?" and then I include the fact that I do graphic novels and comics, not only for climate change, but for anything at all that's kind of environmental education, their eyes light up. And we're talking about high-level scientists here. They get it. They're like, "Oh wow, that's so cool," So actually, I get a bit more success with that than all the rest of it, which is quite interesting.
It sets you apart.
Yeah.
I feel like the idea to make learning about climate change, learning about anything scientific, is just really important to make accessible for all different types of kids. And so it's great that you have both a book, but it also is a graphic novel. So it includes a lot more than just like words for kids that might not want to read like a very long, wordy kind of book.
Yeah. You know, it's a challenge though. It's a challenge getting all that data and information packaged into speech bubbles.
I'm sure.
Right? And so, so I still think I have too many speech bubbles, and I still think they're too full. So I'm working on it. It's something that has to be tweaked, you know, as you go along. But I do include a glossary at the back of the book, and the first book in the series has like Captain Polo's Climate Change Classroom, which is a section at the back, which it has got pictures and cartoons, but it's paragraph text. And it explains in a little bit more depth things like global warming. What does it mean? What are fossil fuels? What is climate justice? All these things are, what is climate mitigation? What is adaptation? What are the examples of those things? All these things come in the book, during the story in graphic way, but I need to have a backup at the back of the book to get into it a little bit deeper, so that anyone using it can actually draw some more complete value, from the information, and also go away and look it up themselves if they want to.
I think that's a really great approach, especially, we always encourage our listeners to read with their kids, no matter how old they are. There's so much value. We know there's a lot of value reading with your babies on your lap when they can fit on your lap. But when they get to be 10, 11, 15, 22 years old, it's still very important to read with our kids or read the same material and then come together and discuss it. Because, that it's like a classroom. You get the information that the professor is giving you, but if that's the only time you experience it, then it kind of goes away. Talking about it is a way to really help you instill that knowledge and instill the passion to make a difference in kids.
That's right. It's about starting conversations. And in fact, the first book in the series kind of recommends to the adults who are managing, buying the book or reading it with their kids. It kind of recommends to do just that. Read it together. Like read a page or two together. And then stop and go back and talk to your kids about what do they think? What do they think of what's happening right now to the frog in the Amazon, for example, or who appears in the graphic novel, or the different characters bring in different aspects of environmental issues all around climate change. But see, climate change is such a massive, huge umbrella subject that it includes all kinds of associated issues that are rarely brought up when you talk about climate change. So the book goes into things like that. Even things like refugees, war refugees. There's a whole section in book 3 about the Syrian refugees pouring into Europe. And one would say, well, why is that relevant to climate change? And the book explains that actually the whole Arab Spring situation has many causes. But one of the enabling environments for the civil wars that happened in places like Syria is that there was a massive drought that lasted for 5 years in that part of the world before the Arab Spring. And that drought absolutely devastated rural populations who had no choice but to move to the cities to look for work in destitute conditions. These are people who have nothing to lose. And, they were all crowded into the city. And then the Arab Spring comes, and it was like lighting a match. So a lot of the problems that we see with political refugees and, even civil war, comes from environmental causes when you go back far enough. A lot of the Africans who are crossing over illegally into Europe and drowning in the Mediterranean on the way, a lot of them are leaving their country because they have no choice. They are affected by drought, and drought is made worse by climate change. So the book goes into that as well. You know, Captain Polo rescues a couple of Syrian refugees in the sea, and understands their story, and brings it out in the book. So there's a lot to stop in the book and talk to your kids with, you know. And these are issues that are very, very serious. Mm-hmm. But I think kids do need to know about them. But if you do it in a positive way and with the cartoons, it kind of makes it all more palatable. You know, and there's always the funny bits and the adventure in the background to make it a good read.
Yeah, I think that parents can often feel really overwhelmed and worried to talk with their kids about these like pretty heavy topics. And as you said, they can be complicated and scary. Do you have any tips that you have for parents to kind of navigate those sort of conversations?
It's a difficult one. They are scary subjects. Kids are looking at a future that is not certain. You know, I'm not an expert in communicating climate anxiety is a big problem these days. But I would say the parents shouldn't try to hide the truth from their kids, because kids are very smart and they're surrounded by media of all kinds, and they're only going to find out anyway, you know, either at school or from social media or on television or something. So kids need to be smart about that. They need to tell the kids what's happening, but also that, you know, there's so many solutions happening around the world. I always say that the thing to say to kids is that humans are a social species, and we've been here for thousands. Well, we've been here for, you know, since the time of the Neanderthals and before, and it's been because of adapting. Humans have always adapted to their circumstances, and now is no exception. And we're seeing it with COVID. The fact that we're doing this by Zoom and all this is an adaptation. So what parents can tell their children is that humans are constantly adapting to the challenges of the environment. And this is no exception. There's nothing new about this. It is very serious, and these are the reasons why it's serious. But these are the things that, these are the things that people are already starting to do about it. And you know what? Here's what we're going to do about it. Because that's the thing. Every family can take a part and be part of the solution. And my books actually show how to do that. There are tips at the end, and there's a practical checklist, you know, and all this sort of thing. And it's all presented by Captain Polo, so it makes it fun and engaging. So that's what I would say to answer your question. That the parents can tell their kids the reality, but also the solutions that exist.
I really love that message that you had, that human beings have been adapting for millennia. And we're still going, this is a problem. We need to recognize that this is a problem. But we also have to come together and adapt so that we can deal with this problem.
Yeah, that's right. And you're already seeing it around the world. I've never seen such a huge kind of awakening, you know, of the environmental movement as in the past couple of years, or the past 2 years, I would say. The whole, you know, Greta Thunberg movement, or the youth strikes, all of this is saying something. And it, you know, it goes along with all the other things that, all the movements for social inclusion, all of that. It's all related. And it's a pretty exciting time, actually. It's, you know, you've got to look at it positively. It's a very exciting time to be around because massive change is happening. In one part of my book, in book 3 of the Captain Polo series, Captain Polo meets a dealer in Cairo, Egypt. And the dealer, I chose him to be a caricature of a doom and gloom kind of character, someone who believes it's all over, that we're all finished. There's nothing anyone can do. You might as well give up. That's what this character, who's a caricature, is all about. And he's a funny character. and he's very self-important, and he believes that he's right. And Captain Polo shows him that that's ridiculous. There are lots of people actually doing a lot around the world to adapt, but also to mitigate, also to reverse the global warming trend. The sequence ends up with that character being knocked up into the sky by Captain Polo, who's lost patience with him. But it's just a caricature, but it's important to address the fact that the doom and gloom argument isn't good enough. It's like, no, we can't just give up because it seems too late. And the scientific reports coming in are very frightening, because they do say things like, we only have 10 years to fix this. Beyond that, it's an irreversible process of feedback loops that we can no longer control. And that's very, very scary. And so we got to talk to our kids in a way that, again, you can't hide it, but, we can't deny it either. But we've just got to be honest with them and say, look, we've always adapted. We've always, humans this is an exciting time to be alive, kids, because you're going to be the part of the solution here. And, here's what we can do every day as a family. We can start by these things that we can do.
Yeah, I definitely think that all of this push towards the climate change movement in the recent years is a great opportunity for kids to look at the news, where sometimes they don't necessarily see their faces a lot, and they see faces of children, and they see families coming forward. And I think that can be really empowering, seeing other kids, other people their age that are making real change and real steps, and it can really help make them feel less helpless and make them feel more empowered. Yeah.
And, more and more schools are now bringing on curriculum that addresses climate change and ecosystem collapse. And so the kids are actually becoming messengers to their own parents a lot of the time. The adults of our generations did not have this training, did not have this education. And so we actually learn a lot from our own kids. Mm-hmm. So again, that's something that's worth, celebrating. The children feel empowered by it too, right? Because they come home and say, "Hey, guess what, Dad? Today we learned about blah blah blah." And Dad says, "Oh, really? Wow, that's cool. Can you explain a bit more?" And the kids say, "Yeah," and then show them the project they're doing or whatever. So yeah, it's good. Yeah. It's very good.
I love that you are always talking about how parents can help their kids learn about certain things by reading together. I think that The Adventures of Captain Polo would be a great opportunity for kids to help their parents start understanding some of the concepts that they're more comfortable with.
Yeah, for sure. And the books are written, they're written because I like what I write. And and so that means that adults will get it, and adults will get the jokes and the humor as well. There is a lot of humor in the books, on purpose, because it has to be fun. Mm-hmm. But I've had feedback from readers who say, "Hey, my kids, my 8-year-old, my 9-year-old showed me your book, and I learned a lot from it." So it is a two-way street, isn't it? Mm-hmm. Children can always teach us, and especially what they're learning in school these days. My kids are now teenagers, but they're learning about finance and entrepreneurism and all kinds of stuff that I never learned at school. So it is a two-way street. But I think the parents need to be around to maybe motivate their kids to read. And I agree with you, Jed, that graphic novels are very good for that. They're very good because they have less text, and so they can encourage reluctant readers to get to the next level. And also, I've been told that comics and graphic novels are very good for dyslexic kids. Mm-hmm. Even certain types of autism some children suffering from certain kinds of autism can get a lot out of graphic novels. I've been told.
Yeah.
I don't know. I've not had any direct feedback on that, but it's very interesting, and I would love to break into that readership, actually.
Yeah, well, it is. We've had lots of guests on talking about, just the many benefits of reading graphic novels. And I've shared here on the podcast, my son loved graphic novels, and I supported that by going out to the store and getting him some and whatnot. But the mistake I made, and I own up to it, is there were too many times when I walked into his room and I said, "Would you please read one book that didn't have a picture in it? You're a sophomore in high school." And I wasn't valuing and respecting the fact that reading graphic novels is reading. And certainly The Adventures of Captain Polo is a great example of the fact that graphic novels, they're more than the Archie comic strips that I read when I was a kid. There's a lot of meat there. There's a lot of information and there's a lot of learning going on.
Yeah. I did love Archie comics when I was growing up too, by the way. But there you go. Again, the Archie comics talk about social integration at school, don't they?
Yeah.
They talk about bullying. They talk about dating. They talk about your first kiss, stuff that appeals to teenagers. So they, in a way, they are full of very valuable content in that way. But yeah, it's I've been reading that the non-fiction graphic novels are actually growing in popularity, and people are learning a whole bunch of stuff through graphic novels. There's also a lot of historical non-fiction in graphic novels, and I've even written one. I wrote one about Charles Darwin in The Theory of Evolution. So that's another graphic novel I have. And that it really is non-fiction. Like every single frame in that book, it was researched. And the cool thing, going back to our earlier conversation, is that I actually did that in the Galapagos Islands.
Yeah.
I researched it there and created it there, in the places that he visited there. And it was very inspiring to do that. Very, very inspiring.
Wow.
That is amazing. That is so cool.
Yeah.
I know we talked about this outside of the podcast, but on your website, you actually have a kind of a board game that families can also use for, I think, reluctant readers or reluctant, science kids, because it's a fun game. It's a board game, but it is packed full of facts and everything to do with Captain Polo.
Yeah, it's a board game. It's free when you sign. It's a way of getting people to sign up for the Captain Polo fan club. You see, I'm trying to get him some fans, and so I want people to sign up for the newsletter, and to do that, you get the game. And the game is based on the first 3 books of the Captain Polo series, so that the characters come into the game. It's a bit like Monopoly meets Snakes and Ladders.
Yeah.
Because you get cards to download, right? And the cards are question cards. And the questions are obviously about climate change and related issues, which if you've read the books, you'll know the answers to. But it still makes you think, and some of them are a little bit outside the book, so you really have to kind of think about them. And I've been told that it's quite difficult. The cards can be quite tough, some of them, but that makes it challenging. And then on the game board, you advance your counter with a dice. And like the Snakes and Ladders system, you have penalties or rewards along the way, But so, for example, you may hit a hurricane. You may hit a hurricane in the North Atlantic. And the board game is the world map. Yeah, it's a world map tracing Captain Polo's journey around the world. And in the North Atlantic, you might meet a hurricane or around near Florida. And so that will set you back 3 places, And the objective is just whoever reaches the final box first. But on the way, you get set back or you get advanced, and you get the cards as well. You land in a square and it says pick up a solutions card. And it will ask you a question about climate change solutions. And if you get it right, you advance so many places. If you get it wrong, you miss a turn, or you get the idea, right? It's that kind of game. I fixed it so that you can download it as a PDF. And once you have the PDF, it's like a bundle of PDFs, actually. And each bundle contains 5 A4 size sheets to print out. And then you print them out, you print out all the bundles, and you end up with the whole game as A4 size sheets, which you then have to stick on together, back together again. You see what I mean?
Yep.
So there's a little bit of a process in transforming a digital JPEG into an actual physical board game that you can play on. But that's the way I've done it, and I know that schools find that useful because they have to just do that process once, and then they paste it on a board, and then the board is rigid, and then you can even put it on the wall. It's an accurate map of the world, so that's pretty cool. And then you just take it down and play it whenever you want.
Yeah. And that sounds like a great, fun family activity, just to spend a night putting the board together and cutting the cards up and creating it. Yeah. And then it sounds like a fun game that parents and kids can play over and over again. That's
right. That's the idea. And I think I know where you're heading with this. I think tomorrow is Earth Hour. Okay. Earth Hour, celebrated by WWF around the world. And Earth Hour is at 8:30 p.m. local time. So wherever you are in the world, at 8:30 p.m. local time, you have to switch off all your lights for 1 hour. You have to switch off all your electricity for 1 hour. Well, maybe not the fridge, right? but basically the idea is to switch off the lights. And so I do it every year, and I try and involve, family and friends or neighbors into that activity. Again, it's more fun if you do it with others. Mm-hmm. If you're just sitting there on your own in a room in darkness, there's not much point, right? But the game could be a fun activity to play with candlelight. Mm. Why not? What else are you going to do for 1 hour without the lights on, right?
Might as well play a board game. I remember I used to drive probably my parents insane when I was younger. During Earth Hour, I would go around the house and I would try and convince my dad to unplug the TV, and even if the lamps were off, we still had to unplug it out of the electricity outlet because it's still creating electricity, and it just probably drove them crazy. But I've always enjoyed participating in that, and I think it's such a great day to really be mindful and just enjoy people's company.
Yeah, that's great. I'm actually going to celebrate it this year as well I'm going to do a live Instagram with a fellow author who also writes about climate change in novel format. He wrote a novel called Stone Child. It's an eco-fiction novel. It's a great story, and like me, he's trying to get the word out. And we're going to do a live Instagram at 8:30 Europe time, because I'm in Ecuador, so I'm on Central time. And we're just going to chat about what we're chatting about now, about books, about reading to kids, and bringing some ecology into it all, and some fun as well.
Well, Alan, when people turn their lights back on at the end of Earth Hour, where can they go to find out more about you and download that game and become a fan of Captain Polo?
Yeah, I'm all over social media, but the best place, because I can't read out all the links, obviously, but the best place is just go to my website. If you just land on my homepage, then you can navigate from there, if you see what I mean. Mm-hmm. So my homepage is just alanhesse.com. So that's ALANHESE.com. That's the best place to go for one single link. And from there, you can pretty much figure out the books are available, from all the links to the books are there, and the game as well, if you just navigate to the resources. Or Captain Polo has his own blog as well. I want to mention that. He has his own page, and anyone signing up to the fan club by downloading the game receives Polo's newsletter. They're not written by me, they're written by him. And so there's a different tone, obviously. And, he signs with a pug mark at the end. And he talks about things that interest him. And so it's just a way of having a double persona. And I find that a lot of fun. I actually find it a lot more fun writing as Captain Polo than as myself. I think he's more interesting.
Wow, that's great. I've loved this conversation today. Thank you so much for joining us on Reading with Your Kids.
Oh, please. Thank you. This is a wonderful conversation, and I'm so glad I found you today.
Please be sure to join us for the next episode of the Reading with Your Kids podcast. Our guest will be Michelle Schaub. And please, please, please be sure to join us next Thursday for the next episode of our Protecting the Planet with Your Kids series. We will have Evelyn Bookless on the show. She is fantastic. I want to thank the folks who made today's show so wonderful. Of course, I want to thank our guest, Alan Hesse. Also want to thank my co-host and co-producer, Alexia Brown. I want to thank our team, Alejandro Doherty, Fatima Khan. I want to thank my beautiful wife for all the support she gives me. Most of all, we all want to thank you. Thank you so much for joining us today. Thank you so much for protecting the planet with your kids. It's our home. We need to take care of it. I'll be looking for you in the next edition of the Reading with Your Kids podcast.